Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. For the students, you don't have a choice.
You always have a choice.
But welcome, as you all know me, Jerome Haferd. We're excited to bring another one of our community partners with the Place Memory and Culture Project, who I'm briefly going to introduce a few of the sort of faculty and team for that as well. But I want to welcome Anthony Carrión.
Hi, guys.
Francisca. And Franco the Great. So Franco and Anthony have choreographed a sort of talk for us. As you know, we've been looking at Harlem, we've been looking at 125th Street, past, present, and future. And I think you and your work really exemplifies the sort of simultaneity of that. So we're going to hear from this amazing artist who's still living right here in our community. He lives down the street. So I go to his place when I'm biking on my way here. So it's an easy commute. But we're all neighbors, and he's a neighbor of this school, and that makes this even more, I think, meaningful. I just want to quickly note and shout out to the faculty who are here, Nina Cooke John.
Yes.
Chat Travieso. Gerardo Ciprian. And Mia Love, who have been helping to shape this spring semester, which we're right in the midst of, and sort of exploring the street. Some of you even looking at street art, right? And we're going to be getting a glimpse into really the beginning of that in the kind of its recent era, in this era of street art on 125th Street with this individual. So I also want to give a shout out to Denise Andrade, who's here, who is the director of the Place Memory Culture Incubator with me.
All right.
So we're glad you're all here, and I am going to now turn it over to our wonderful guests.
Hey, everybody. Hi. Like Jerome said, my name is Anthony Carrión. Currently, I work for the Mayor's Office of Engagement. But before that, some 10 years back, I graduated from this institution here, City College. And one of my first jobs was working at the Harlem Community Development Corporation, which is on the state office building on 125th Street. Can't miss it, that huge 17-story building. And so my first time meeting Franco as an employee of that company, that city agency, we were doing an initiative called Save the Gates of Harlem. So at that time, Harlem was being rezoned, to allow for greater, more commercial activity, and also for high-rise buildings as well. So buildings like the Victoria Theater, you may have seen, this 30-story plus building, that's going to become more and more the norm. And at the time, Franco's gates were still, you could still see them on 125th Street. But over time, you're going to see less and less because they're going to replace those gates with see-through gates, So there was an initiative to preserve his steel gates, and you can still see some of them on 125th Street. There's also a few at the East River Plaza as well, the Costco, if you've ever been in East Harlem, El Barrio. And there are a few more in storage as well. So the first time I met Franco, young, very young, just out of college, and it was very inspirational. So I really hope you enjoy this moment, this time you have with Franco. And let's start. So we're going to begin with a few short videos, just to kind of frame Franco's history and his legacy. The first video we're going to see is from a show. I don't know who's old enough to remember this show. It's called Real People back in the day, the early 1980s. And they have a short interview with Franco. So we're going to check out that clip right now.
has always been the heart of black community life in New York City, and 125th Street is the heart of Harlem. But since the riots of a decade ago, this center of the community has been locked behind steel gates. Store owners locked up their goods and only raised the gates during business hours. The rest of the time, these cold gray barricades make local residents feel like unwanted outsiders in their own neighborhood. The gates have made this once vital shopping and meeting place feel like a prison.
I've been on this street for about 15 years. I've been before they had riot gates, when this street was beautiful. Customers used to walk down and window shop at night. They used to walk on Sunday. And then with the riots and everything, riot gates came. It became like a morgue. It was depressing. It was terrible.
Gates was put up to keep niggas out. You know what I mean? That's what the gates was. That's the bottom line. The gates was up to keep the niggas out.
Well, someone finally decided to do something about the situation. Meet artist Franco Gaskin. He's launched a one-man crusade to make 125th Street come alive again. Armed only with his paints and his ever-present stereo headphones, Franco is fulfilling his dream to turn every iron gate in Harlem into a vibrant work of art.
Then you have a man like this to come and take something negative and make something positive out of it.
When he first started, he would come out here in the middle of the night without any recompense, any kind of money, and you would find this happening.
The whole thing started back in 1978. That's when Franco and a Harlem business owner first decided that an iron gate should be used for something more than shutting people out. How did Franco come to paint your gate?
When he came, he brought me a book, and we opened it up, and he says, "What would you like?" So I picked out a magnolia bush. So he put the magnolia bush on there, and this store stood out like a 100-watt bulb. Only store with a picture on this gate, so I think in the whole world, right? Then the phone was ringing. Who painted your picture? Who painted your picture, you know? And right away, store after store after store, started getting their gates painted.
Now, when store owners close up for the night, Franco's fantastic flights of fancy light up the avenue for all to see. He's done 35 gates so far, and there are no two alike. These gate paintings are such a hit in Harlem that some people want to name 125th Street after the artist. I visited Franco in his studio to find out more about his ambitious project. Do you sometimes feel that just maybe the whole city is your canvas?
My first idea was to have one of the largest galleries in the world. This was my feelings. If I could have a gallery that I could call Franco's Gallery, from river to river, one avenue at a time.
And all of them named Franco Boulevard. Franco invited me to see some of his works in progress. I learned that gate painting has its own particular set of problems. First, there are the local art critics, and also the difficulty of painting on corrugated metal instead of a flat canvas. But facing problems and overcoming them is nothing new to Franco Gaskin. He's been doing that all his life. I learned that as a child, he had to deal with a serious speech impediment which kept him from speaking. How did you decide to make painting your occupation?
Well, I remember very well when I was about 4 or 5. I couldn't express myself like I'm doing now at all. It was totally impossible. Matter of fact, my parents and my friends used to call me dummies. Then I find myself quite comfortable in the corner, just painting, drawing cartoons, and expressing myself in that way.
Why do you suppose you turned out in a positive way? As a child, having people calling you a dummy, that might have turned you angry.
You know, sometimes I look back and I say, that's the best thing ever happened to me, that they call me dummy. Because that gives me the incentive to prove that they were wrong.
Well, Franco has proven them wrong. And if you have any doubt about that, ask the people of 125th Street.
I like it. He's your modern-day Michelangelo.
If it continues like this, it wouldn't be riot gates. You have to change the name to beauty gates or something like that, for art gates.
Bringing some of the country to Harlem.
It really shows you that there's somebody here cares about Harlem.
Franco has become so popular that between signing autographs and explaining his work to tourists, it's sometimes hard to find time to paint. But the work goes on, and you never know when there may be a future Franco standing on the sidewalk behind you, picking up pointers.
A kid in the ghetto never have a chance to see an artist work. he may never exposed to an artist, because most artists is indoors, and most artists are white. Just to see one of his own kind of their painting, and he may just develop in feelings for this type of work.
Franco Gaskin is much more than a colorful local artist to the people of Harlem. He and his paintings are symbols, living proof that one person working alone against the odds can really make a difference, and that it's still better to light a bright candle of hope than to curse the darkness.
It is hope. That's what it is. A lot of hope for a lot of people, young folk, you know, that you can do it on your own.
So that was real people from back in the early 1980s, just when Franco was beginning his work. The next video we're going to see is from the early 2000s. It's a news clip from The Remarkable Journey. It's about 4 minutes long, so you're going to get to see the evolution of Franco's work. I hope you enjoy it.
But another remarkable journey in brief.
I knew what I wanted from very young, to be an artist. But never dreamed that I'll spread my wings so far around the world.
It's no secret, Harlem is rich in African American history. Just the mention of 125th Street will spark many folks to talk about the world-famous Apollo Theater. But locals will tell you a different story. One of a man who for the past 30 years has literally left his mark. An artist whose remarkable journey has made him world famous. He's the Picasso of Harlem, better known as Franco the Great.
One Sunday, the store owner asked me if I could paint something in the gates, because all the gates were graffitied. Everyone passed by that Sunday and said, "Mister, you're doing a fantastic job. Beautiful, beautiful."
Beautiful, that's an understatement. Franco's work has been called genius by many. He transformed the cold corrugated steel of storefront security gates into many windows of the world. This Panamanian's incredible story begins at the age of 3, after a near-fatal accident when he fell from a 2-story building, landing on his head.
According to my mother, she said I was in a coma for a month and my head was this big. But my grandmother, she was responsible for me to watch me, and she probably turned her back and there I went, up the veranda.
The injuries made it difficult for Franco to speak.
That was the sad part, because I could not express myself verbally or be articulate like other kids. I'd sit down and draw cartoons. Believe it or not, this character was my friend.
Franco continued to draw, found friends in his priest who introduced him to magic, and also a fellow artist who helped Franco with his speech.
I was always reaching out for knowledge and people that could help me grow. And they're the one that actually made Franco the Great.
So with magic in one hand and pen and paint brushes in the other, Franco the Great left Panama in 1958 and came to Harlem. And though the road at first was rocky, no one in Harlem ever called him a dummy.
I was living on 114th Street at the time, and I walked over to 125th Street, knocking on every possible door that had a business. I was turned away, turned down, until someone let me know that in Harlem, or in New York rather, no one does anything for free. And if you do, you probably had a motive to come and rob the place later. And that was like, wow, this is everything.
Now at the age of 77, Franco and his wife live in the center of it all, where he is the proud curator of the world's largest outdoor art gallery, extending some 10 blocks on both the east and west sides of 125th Street. Over the years, Franco's remarkable work has even been commissioned around the world.
This is what really floored me, because sorry. time I talked about this, it really affected me, because to see my life was like this one time, and then it's turned around another way. But the determination in myself to be not what people think you are, but what you think you are. This is one of the ways that I can communicate with the world. And so you see, it has a lot of goodness come out of it. All because I did it with love and for beauty. That never lost.
So this is the last video clip we're going to play, taken, I believe, maybe 2 years ago, after the pandemic. And you might have seen this on News Channel 11, if you watch the news. So it's a short 2-minute clip. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
You've probably walked by and admired them. The man behind the paintbrush is Franco Gaskin. He's known as Franco the Great, or the Picasso of Harlem, for a reason.
It's a work of art.
Pix 11 News visited Gaskin at his Harlem home. Happy birthday to you!
Thank you, thank you.
He's celebrating a milestone birthday. He says he feels ageless, just like his art. How old are you?
I'm up in age.
Gaskin started in the 1970s, painting hundreds of murals on the metal gates of closed Harlem stores, up and down 125th Street. He's become a local celebrity. These are all your fans?
He's from Japan, Germany, France.
Now, arthritis has impacted Gaskin's hands, and he can't paint anymore. His home, now his gallery. It's masterpiece after masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly.
His favorite art pieces, this one called Think Positive, and this one called Progress for My People.
These are some of the places that I've been and people that I've met.
Some of his pieces focus on local musicians, legends like Martin Luther King Jr., and sometimes celebrities. Gaskin has 2 books out right now focused on his life and work. He says because of the pandemic, many of his works of art have been defaced by graffiti. He hopes people will find his work on social media and appreciate it.
Some of these gates, a lot of people would never see them again because those was a good while ago.
Gaskin hopes people will be moved by his art. There's a definite message here.
All of us can go very far from where we are because I'm a very good example of that. And you must try to bloom exactly where you're planting.
He also has a dream about a section of 125th Street.
That's someday they'll call it Franco's Boulevard.
Ask people here, Gaskin has already made his mark.
He's a legend in Harlem. And if you want to see one of Gaskin's work up close, it's here, right here at Portobello, right next to the Apollo. And also you can check out his Instagram page. We'll link to it right on Monica Morales TV on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. In Harlem, Monica Morales, Pix 11 News.
All right. Okay, I'm going to transition to the next section. I wanted a couple quick observations. I first met Franco in that same apartment. How long have you been living in that space and working in that space?
Over 50 years.
So 50 years.
Over 50 years and plus, yeah.
50 years. And I want to also note that this is a full circle moment with Anthony, who's a graduate of our school, BARC, and is underplaying his amazing role in many historic preservation efforts and spaces around this city. Anthony is partially the reason I got involved with the Harlem African Burial Ground site that we were looking at last semester. So this is also years of collaboration, and this is a person who really is engaged and passionate about his work, and I want to acknowledge that as well. Yeah. All right, so I am going to set the stage for Franco to talk personally about some of these gates on 125th. As you saw in the videos, Franco Gaskin, also known as Franco the Great, was born in Panama in 1933. At the age of 3, was injured and fell from several stories, landing on his head and leaving him in a coma for months. The injury left him partially disabled and very introverted. Luckily, he would discover and develop his artistic talent, first cartooning and later magic,
Right.
to make friends and connect with others. Franco came to Harlem in 1958, but wasn't received in Harlem until much later, and maybe we can talk about that process. He slowly developed his notoriety as a painter by first working in New York's Spanish neighborhood downtown. Following the assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968, riots ensued in Harlem, which some of you all have been researching, riots, which led to the installation of steel security gates or riot gates. This unsightly and oppressive public act was transformed by Franco the Great into an outdoor public art gallery.
Right on.
And I think I can speak for the public artists in the room that it's just so brilliant. It's so brilliant, and it's very meaningful, and we know that hustle. We know that hustle for sure. And beautified the community and provided hope for the people. Since the late 1970s, Franco has painted hundreds of gates along 125th Street, from the east side to the west, from river to river, and developed a new art form. Franco's gate murals have earned him worldwide acclaim and international notoriety. Over the years, has received awards from diverse supporters such as Ebony Magazine, the Uptown Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Administration. He has earned the Ghetto Fab Award. I want to hear about that. The Harlem Week Special Achievement Award, certificates of appreciation from the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association of the City of New York, and also recognized by many elected officials within city, state, and federal government. As one of Harlem's unofficial emissaries, Franco has met visitors from all over the world. Since he speaks English, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese, he can make virtually everyone feel welcome, which I think is part of this story that you're going to share.
Exactly.
He's received invitations to paint murals in the public spaces of France, Germany, Switzerland, Japan, and the Caribbean, and several African countries. In addition to the gates of Harlem, his work is displayed in bars and nightclubs, nurseries, schools, galleries, department stores from Harlem to Hong Kong.
All right.
It's my great pleasure to introduce Franco.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me say good evening, or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Is everyone okay? Yes. Okay, great. Now, let me explain a little bit of my life story from the beginning to the present, okay? Now, when I first came to Harlem, Harlem shows me where I could really bloom where I was planted. I found myself in Harlem, and I shall bloom there, and I did bloom. But anyway, let me explain. One of the first gate that I did in Harlem, I call it the Bloom, which that gate opened so many doors for me. I've been to many countries, which you can see from my costume, and also happened to meet very successful people and interesting people. That's when I began to plant my seeds. Well, let me say that I began to plant my seed by when I came to the States. I came with my palette, my brushes, and a packet full of dreams. And I never stopped dreaming. So I walked from 8th Avenue to almost Madison Avenue, knocking on every door, possible commercial doors, asking them to give me permission to paint something in the wall with no recompense, just free. But I was turned away. So I was wondering why I was turned away. That puzzled me. So one of my friends told me, Frank, in New York, nobody give to do nothing for free. So they think that you're coming back to rob the place. Well, that was a shock to me. But by the way, I went downtown, I speak a little Spanish there, and I went into a Mexican place, and that was the greatest move that I ever made. So I asked the Mexican owner, I says, well, you let me paint something in the patio. And they said, son, we don't have the money for this and that. I said, but money's not the object right now. I just want to paint something to have like a reference. So what happened now, not knowing that that was the perfect spot, in 2 weeks' time, the area paper, newspapers, the Spanish paper, they gave me a complete feature, and I tell you, I was swamped with work from the Spaniard, the Puerto Rican, the Mexican club, and everybody just swamped me with work. So what happened? I began to work for 2.5 years downtown in 14th Street and in the Spanish area. So I came back to Harlem just to spend some money and some time and to visit my friends. So they asked me, well, Frank, we haven't seen you for quite a while. What you been doing? I said, I've been downtown, painting. And I guess they feel a little jealous. They said, can you paint something for us? Like a New York skyline or what we call it, United Nations. I says, okay, but this painting will be so different. I said, how different? Well, I can continue to paint this painting, and they've never seen nothing like that before. This one painting could change into 3 different times of the day. Show you the morning, show you the dawn, and show you at night. Now, people would come into that place of business, which was a bar, and they would just stare at the painting because they have never seen nothing like that. So after that, the rest of the bars in Harlem in those days, they had 2 things that was plenty of. A lot of churches and a lot of bars. And I was busy with both of them. So anyway, thank God for that. But it seemed like every 10 or 20 years, I reinvent myself. So I started to do different things, a painting that can change from winter to summer or from invisible to visible. And that's how I got the name Franco the Great. But that was part of it. But anyway, I began to do these things, and I've been known in Harlem for that type of painting. But it's the gates that really put me on the map. So I started to paint the first gate, which was this one. I've never painted a gate before, but this one was my bachelor's lesson. And I would try to paint like a blossom tree. And this one was a glow at nights. And people will always see this painting after the store closed. And then after that, I began to paint from the east side to the west side with no recompense, no money. So what happened? Well, when I painted this particular painting, I had something in mind, and I don't know how anyone could live without a prayer. I used to pray every Sunday to go to Japan. not knowing anyone in Japan. But this tree represents like a blossom tree. And Japan is famous for that type of tree. And then, sooner or later, I get a call. We come to Japan. And I was in Japan over 28 times. So you see, when you pray, be careful, you just might get it. I swear to God. Then after that, I was invited to the Prime Minister of France and Canada and Africa. The second time I went to Africa, not to paint, but to bring the tourists to Africa. Why? Because they saw me operate in 125th Street, where there was a time where no white people would go to 125th Street. They was probably scared. Of course, there was the stigma. Don't go there because you know what will happen. And I, one man only, stay in Harlem where people says, why you don't go downtown and do this painting? The downtown needs you. I said, no, Harlem needs me more. Harlem is where I should be. And one Sunday, I'll never forget, I had just one little table with a lot of postcards. And a bus came up with some French people, and they came out the bus, very scary. And they look at my table, and they, with the expression of the face, I said, oh my goodness. It's like they say, what the hell is this? But anyway, they went back into the bus. And so I didn't know what to say, but I went back. I went in the bus and I spoke to them and I said, look, you don't have to buy anything on my table, but just please come and take a picture with me. And they came out and take a picture with me because they were shocked that I wasn't mad. But that's all I asked them to do, just take a picture with me. And then I heard somebody in the background say, but in French, hey man, he's a nice guy. Then they turn around and buy every piece of postcard that I had on the table. So that's when I realized that personality really works. And I really feel that I put the personality in action. And from that time, I've been using personality in action. And I've been gathering hundreds and hundreds of tourists from all over the world. And even they invite me to their country. So that's just to show you, it pays to be nice sometimes. So, shall we reach out the paintings that I would like to explain? Oh, yeah, okay, think positive. I was always a person always thinking positive. Even when I see that way, ads were against me, but I still feel that I should think positive. Maybe it would work. And I began to think positive. So I figured that this painting, thinking positive is not easy to do. I guess you all know a few people that think negative all the time. And I always try to think positive. But this vault from the bank will show you, if you think positive and you know the combination, you can open any doors. That's by thinking positive. It may be not the right way to say things, but you have to have the right attitude. And if you think positive, it will bring you luck. It will bring you everything that you never thought it was possible. Thinking positive is the seed to success. And thinking positive will always have material things at your feet. Now, the other painting, may I ask, the other painting will be, oh, okay. This one is something else. Okay. If you look, okay, I am one that never dabbled with politics, not more religion. But I had something to say, and I thought I said it. Now, if you look at the left corner, at the bottom left, you'll see a nude male, which in those days, I guess, that was a popular thing to do, to make black people slaves. But no longer that we are slaves, we're just as equal as any man. And you can see this tall man starting up, rolling his sleeves. Meaning to say that it's time for us to build and help build and create. And the same token, there's a little boy standing up, looking at this giant of a man, hoping that someday he will be like this man. And after that, there's a little girl looking at the couple and saying to herself, no longer that they are walking with their head down, but they're looking straight ahead. They are black and beautiful and talented. And as you look further up, you see the picture of Martin Luther King. He's wondering if his dream will ever come true. That's wondering. But right beside him, there's a statue of Justice, Afro-American, all in like a scale that is not equal. It never was equal through the black history. But at the extreme right, something that never been done before. There's this man coming out of the White House who was the president of the United States. I did that painting in 1984. Okay? 1984. Which no one could ever think and dream of that could happen. But I did because my philosophy was nothing stays the same forever. And that's what I proved. And today we all see that happen. So the next painting will be, okay, now harmony among the races. This painting was done with the idea of making a stamp for the United Nations. And as you can see, there are three boys embracing each other. One black, one white, and one yellow. Those are the three primary colors of the spectrum of the human race. But they are embracing each other with no prejudice in mind. That's solidarity, and they embrace with no hate or injustice. That's why I think that picture was made with that in mind for the United Nations. Now the third picture is, this is America. Now, from my observation, America is comprised of many countries and many nations, I actually say, the many colors of people. But they are four hands on and on to each other. The yellow man, the white man, the black man, and the brown man. Maybe the red man is there, I don't remember. But all what it meant that they're hanging into each other because, why? They need each other. Because it's not a homogeneous society. It's a society that people said it will never be. But so far, America has been lucky. So far. God bless America, I say. So the other paintings, sir? Okay. Okay, Martin Luther King. This gate, out of all the gates that I've painted through the years, this is the smallest gate, but the most profound gate. It means so much to me. This gate was done with the premises that Martin Luther King almost lost his life at that exact place. He was book signing in 1958, and a black lady came up and stuck a knife in his chest, right? So we almost lost him. But he has done so much for us. How can we forget him? How can we forget those words? Remember, I had a dream. Remember, I have a dream. Those words went all over the world and still good until today. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it is for us to finish his dream. Thank you. so far. Well, you see, Franco the Great was only for magic. Because most magicians would use that adjective. The great, Houdini the Great, you know. Only for that. But one day I was painting in a bar, and I was painting and talking to the people, and I'm listening to them and I'm painting. And here a guy said, "Damn, that Franco is great." I said, "Okay, they're ready to receive me now." And that's when I started to put Franco the Great. But before, most of my painting was Franco. Until I hear the public say, then I know.
Then it's okay.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Good question.
Yes, some more, please.
Thank you.
I was looking at one of the murals that you did. I really liked it because it was based off of Ernie Torrance' The Sugar Shack, and I kind of recognized it off of the Marvin Gaye "I Want You" cover art. I just thought that was really beautiful.
Was it one of the ones he showed?
It wasn't one of the ones he showed, but I think it showed up in a clip. Maybe one of the videos, I think, of the...
I've never done any work Captain Marvin Gaye, no. Something similar. Maybe because people dancing, you think I'm copying him. No, because that style was a complete different style altogether. You can tell. Mine was more like Latin people dancing. It's completely. Marvin Gaye was called the people dancing. Black people dancing.
So this is very interesting because you've told me about your origins coming to Harlem and your identity as Black or African.
African, yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? What it was like coming here, and then the African American culture and how you related to that?
Okay, let me go back. In Panama, let's say. Panama had a lot of Jamaican people who was to help build the canal. And that's where I was born. And the canal zone, at the time, the canal zone was actually permanently belongs to the American. So whoever was born in that area, it was American property or American owned. So when people ask me where I was born, I don't really want to tell them either Panama or Canada. They probably don't know about Canada, so. But they know about Panama, so it's easy for me to tell them Panama. But I try to forget about Panama, so I said Jamaica, you know, or even Africa. So that's the struggle, that's all. That's it. But when I got here, then I began to try to dramatize myself, you know, try to join the crowd, you know. And so I pick up a lot of, I tried to at least pick up a lot of Black culture here, and so forth. That's all.
And you talk about the assassination of MLK as being like a pivotal moment for you. Was that really?
What moment?
Martin Luther King's assassination.
Oh yeah.
That really was a pivotal moment for
oh,
you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Matter of fact, when I came out in 1958, I came out the subway and I saw the newspaper with a black man's face on the cover. I never know who was this man, but shortly after I learned about him, he had a knife stuck in his chest, and I was very worried about this picture because deep down inside of my mind, he has to be very important for them to put him on the cover of the newspaper. He must be important for that reason. So that's what it drew my interest. And then I learned that he almost got killed, lost his life at that store. It was a department store in 1958 by the name of Blumenstein, I guess, Blumenstein. And he was there. But that gate was right at the spot. That was the entrance of that store. That's why that gate was so meaningful to me. Have a history. And there was a set of people in Washington contact me, asking me about if I did anything lately for Martin Luther King, and I was trying to explain about that gate. And they asked me, could they get the gate? But Columbia University bought the building, and they destroyed the gate. So that hurt me so much.
So this was on 125th?
Yes.
On the west side, that would be, right?
And yes.
When did Columbia buy the building?
I have no idea, but it must be. I really have no idea, because they bought the building, and I was standing right beside the building when I saw that the gate was missing.
Yeah.
So I asked them where the gate was, and they said that throw it in the garbage.
Wow. Yeah.
So when the people from Washington called me and asked me about the gate, if I have anything lately about Martin Luther King, because they was putting up Martin Luther King Martin Luther
Memorial.
Yeah, memorial,
Yeah.
exactly. And they wanted that gate because it was had so much meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the reason why they want that particular gate.
Yeah.
Franco would be there, and he would be, a tourist attraction, right? From beginning since the 90s, the 80s?
Yes, yeah. It started even from the early 80s, yeah, very early 80s.
We take it for granted now that Harlem is like, this international destination, right? You see tourists from all over, but that wasn't the case, right?
It wasn't the case.
And really the evolution of 125th Street from what you said, mom and pops, department stores, now it's becoming more commercial, bigger buildings, and now, they're putting up these see-through gates because the idea is it's going to be a kind of luxury commercial corridor like a Fifth Avenue or something.
Exactly.
And those tall buildings are going to become the norm, and you're going to lose kind of that streetscape that was.
But nothing stays the same forever. So it's one of those things you have to expect.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing that someone have interest of trying to preserve the history and the ambience at that time, so that we could say, wow, what a change. So I'm very glad that there are people that have it in them to do something about the changes.
What would be your dream for how folks could remember your work in Harlem?
What would be my dream? Well, to have books and literatures of books and even photograph, so people can remember, because, of course, different generations think differently. I don't expect the generation today think like me, like the 50s. I don't expect that, because advancement of electronics and technology is so advanced that most everything around us advanced, you see. So thinking about the past, but it's nice to look back at,
If you were just starting today, is there something you would change, or what would you do? We have cell phones now.
I wouldn't know any different, because it's just like some people says, if I know now, which if I was 15 years, but you can't, because 15 years, but when you're 15, it has its own mentality, it has its own ways. But when you're 51, you think different. You can't think like 15 anymore. So that's why I say, being 50, people always use that as a reference. Man, if I noticed when I was 50, but how can you notice when you're 50? You weren't exposed to those things.
Right. You'd be different. You'd be different. You'd be a different person.
You'd be a different person.
Yeah.
We had two questions.
Yeah. Yes.
I think a lot of us could agree that your pieces of art has evolved 125th Street into different opportunities of interaction. So to explain, like the stores, they're open during the daytime hours, and then in the evening, your pieces of art question is, are you happy with the conversations or interactions that have occurred or manifested because of your piece of art, or do you wish they had evolved differently?
Why should have the 2 or 3 point question?
No, that's just one question. I can repeat myself. Are you happy with the conversations and interactions that occurred because of your pieces of art over time?
Okay, I will try. Will you please explain what you
Sure. Over time, like the public's interaction with your artwork, are you satisfied with it? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, yes. I'm very happy that people check it and put it on another level. For instance, this meeting tonight, today, you all are considered the greatest. You know why? Because you all are doing things that I couldn't do by myself. So you all become the greatest. Because you put me in another notch up there. So everyone that to take my story and put it up alive is telling me that they're keeping my legacy alive, and that's why I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Another question in the back. One more student. Yeah.
Hi. This is a lighter question. I'm just curious. One of the things that was mentioned in the videos was regarding the fact that you had a moment in your life when you were a magician as well. I'm just curious how that added or bled into your artwork, if it had any effect on what you painted and how that influenced your work.
Explain to me what she said.
She said she wants to know about your magic, being a magician.
Oh.
Did that have an influence on your artwork?
I'm very glad that you asked that, miss. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me about that. Well, no. The drawing was my only outlet at the time because I couldn't communicate with my peers. So I used the drawing to entertain myself. But then I wanted to communicate with my peers, right? And I found it very difficult to do that because I could project. But then I figured out, I remember I was 9 years old, and I figured if I could do something that they couldn't do, they would be my friend.
Right.
So I was always looking to connect public-wise. So I began to do the magic thing, and I had a lot of friends. Even in school, I was very tricky. I would teach some of the kids then the code, or send the answer to me. You understand what I'm saying? So, for instance, like I didn't know this answer, I send a code, and you send back the answer to me. So my magic.
You're a performer.
Even in class. Well, what caused me to do that? One day the teacher says, there is somebody here that can do all kinds of magic, but how come to never have good grades? And I said, wait a minute. Okay, I'll fix that. I'll fix that. And that's how that began to deal with the smart kids around. And you see, and they were glad to know that I could teach them something. You know? Yeah, but that's how the magic began. And then I began to use the magic with the painting. Painting blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
I put the silver dollar in my socket, and I wrap my hand with gauze and tie my head all kind of a way, 3, 4 different cover, and still paint, and sometimes sing too.
Yeah.
So like black magic or something. And people say, how in hell you could do that? Yes. But that's my magic.
Yeah, I think it is black magic. I mean, there's something about even the clothes you wear. It's so Harlem in a way, and it really goes back even to this childhood performer.
I didn't call myself.
It's a performance.
That name is the Picasso moment. I did not put my name there. I used to be very offended by that name because I says, you're letting me live under this man's shadow.
That's right. Absolutely.
You
Yes.
will call me Picasso Rembrandt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Why
Picasso.
call
who?
me?
That's right.
Why call me? My name is Franco the Great. I used to tell him.
I have a question on that note, because I'm thinking about your work, not only as a legacy, but the support of your estate by New York, by the state itself. Like you were saying, you have some of the gates, and I'm wondering, because I have a father that's also a visual artist, and we have to keep half of the estate in places that we have to pay for, right? And I'm wondering, so my question is, with this greatness that you continue to make Harlem, but humanity, right? Is the state providing a certain kind of support to you for your work, particularly while all these gates start coming down and being quote unquote trashed, but recovered?
Yes, exactly.
How are you paying for your how do you keep it in the storage? For your storage, is New York City helping you in any way?
I wish that they did, but my friend Antoine can answer that. Please.
Yes.
Okay.
Please answer that.
Okay. So I was an intern when this was happening. It was called Save the Gates of Harlem.
Yes.
I designed like a WordPress website, so I wasn't like in the negotiations or the contracts. From what I understood was they had entered into communication with East River Plaza, so that's the Bloomfeld Development Corporation, I believe at the time, to take some of the gates. And for a time period, they did pay for the storage. So they did help take down, I think, 18 to 20 of them. We had them kind of archived, like just taking pictures of them. But they can only display 4 or 5 at a time. So the 4 or 5 that you see there are just, just a handful, just a couple. From my understanding, they didn't get any, support from elected officials or the city or anything like that. It was a private development corporation, and since then there's been some issues with, well, let's not get into that, but there was, there's been some issue over time with, who's going to pay for now going forward,
Well, the Harlem Museum is coming up, and so I'm just wondering, it seems like this is an opportunity to create a retrospect in the museum on these gates.
Yeah.
I'm just
You mean the
thinking,
Studio Museum?
Yeah, the
Yes.
Studio
Yeah.
Museum, I'm sorry. The Studio Museum, like this feels very important. Not
There was
only
a
for
company
these
that wanted
architecture
to-
students,
There was a company that wanted to, yes? There was a company that wanted to buy them and install them in certain places. But then, things happen. The different changes, I just lost everything. What do you want to say, Chief?
Well, you told me a story that there had been a millionaire who had commissioned 2 or 3 gates for himself and wanted to donate one to Studio Harlem.
Oh, yeah, that was a long time ago when I first started out. This millionaire was coming from a plane, and in the plane, you'll see a magazine in the plane, and he saw my work, and he was very impressed, and he contacted me right away and asked me to paint for him 4 gates. I said, well, what is your business? He said, no, it's from my home. I said, I'm going to put 4 gates in your home. But he said, I have a lot of space in my home, but I don't have gates, Franco gates. I said, wow. So what happened? Every Sunday he would call me, and he's very proud of this. And it has nothing to do with Harlem. But guess what happened? He wanted me to paint 3 of the gates for him and donate 1 of the gates to Studio Museum. Now this man has nothing to do in Harlem, nothing to do with black folks, but he's thinking. that when the stores are closed, people would like to see my work and to donate one to the Harlem Museum. I told him that he must write or talk to them himself, because a few years ago, the New York Times wanted to do an article with me, and they went there and asked them, what do you think about Franco? And they say, Franco's no painter. Franco's just an old man painted in the street. So they don't consider me artist or anything. But guess what happened now? About 3 months after, the Studio Museum wrote me a letter who wanted me to give a good word for them to the newspaper. I said, oh yeah? Oh, okay, you wait. You'll get it. So you see what happened? Okay, they didn't consider me. And tell the public, asking me every morning I'm out there painting, and Franco, why your work is not over there?
Yeah.
And then they decided now to bring a photographer to take a picture. And they had a special book with all my work.
And it's like this with so many artists, the institutions don't care until you're long gone. And then all of a sudden, it's the greatest thing ever. But you know, to follow up on that, hopefully some of you may have ideas of how we preserve your legacy.
Exactly.
How do we document this? How do we image these gates? There's a few remnants still on the street. I see a few of them, the Mr. T one. So, you know, you are now part of this and can be part of this legacy, you know.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years since I'm in the house. I haven't been going out for the exception of Mr. Van here right beside me. He's the one that took it upon himself to ride me out, to take me out sometime. But as a rule, I'm locked up for the longest time in bed. So I don't know anything else but bound. So I'm glad when I see a visitor or a lovely face like love. And you're doing justice to that name, you know that. Huh? You could give that name justice. When I look at you, I see love, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Right. Okay,
That's
good.
right. That's
Okay,
right.
great.
And we're so glad that we're right up the street
Right,
and you're able to come in the flesh, man. It's so great to have you. Let's give it.
Thank you.
Did you want to ask one more? Yeah.
Hi, first of all, I'm Kayla. Me and my grandfather are huge fans, we always have been. Our favorite is actually Remember I Had a Dream, so thank you for bringing that into the world. But I guess my question is, something I'm really focused in right now is about art transcending boundaries as far as how disability goes and how it can create these boundaries. So, as art, as almost your first language of sorts, out of many apparently, how did art help you heal?
How did art help you heal?
Oh, well,
Such a great question.
being a young man and unable to speak, project myself like other kids, the only thing I find myself doing is to drawing cartoons. And it seemed like every week I created a new character just to be my friend, you know. And I tell you the truth, the first face that I learned to paint was Hitler, the German.
Hitler.
Hitler.
No, but why? Because all I heard the people talking about is this man. This man is conquering this, and it's doing all of this, and it's doing all. I said, man, I want to be like this because it's powerful. You know, every day I hear about what this man is taking over France and taking over this place, and that's the only person I know. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he must have been all over
That I
the
heard
radio.
about it, yes.
This is
And I
before
said,
World War II.
I said, well, I want to be, you know, not knowing about his monstrosity, what he was doing, but then I realized that if you're military, you can think like a military man, and if you're a civilian, you think like that. So I understand. And so after that, then I started to draw, you know, Mickey Mouse and the different characters. But as I said, my communication skill was limited. That's why I studied magic, was to gain friends. And I did gain a lot of friends. And the priest helped me a lot because I go to the priest, the Catholic priest, and ask him to help me buy a book, magic book. And he helped me buy the book. And he says, I want to study, practice. I said, okay. So every time the church had a function, he will ask me to do some magic. And then before he introduced me, he will talk to the audience to take it easy with the kid, you know, because he's having difficulty expressing himself. So the crowd would take it easy with me. So, but the magic allowed me to project myself. Don't run away from things. Face it. And that's what the magic did for me.
Exactly.
Yes?
All right, last question.
Okay, I wanted to ask this like really badly. In terms of like how we can like push your legacy, do you think the act of painting along 125th Street ourselves is a representation of your legacy, like they did on the non-vacant lots on the
In front of the vacant lots?
yeah, like on
Yeah.
Lexington. On Lexington, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of painting now on the construction
Yeah.
fences. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you think your legacy can continue that way? Because I know in
Do I?
graffiti culture, there's like layerings and murals, and sometimes his becomes like a sacrifice in terms of like graffiti. And I wonder if that is also kind of a continuation, because it's the act of painting along.
Yeah, do you feel like the street art that you see now, the graffiti, the murals, is continuing your legacy in a way?
Okay, let me explain something to you. Before all of this happened, nobody was painting anything in Harlem. Nobody. Because Harlem wasn't considered that much beautiful place to be. I'm the one that started that. I'm the pioneer. So after I began to do his work, everybody come from the motor of the woodworks, I guess. I knew about how to become an artist in Harlem. So you see, but by my books, you'll notice that these things did not appear before. Those what that you're talking about wasn't there before.
Right.
My work was there for 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years before the pandemic came in and the graffiti order destroyed them. And why they destroyed them? Because the gates was down most of the time. So they were graffiti.
Yeah, so you're saying during COVID, the stores were all closed.
Closed for the longest time.
So the artwork was just exposed all day long, and that's when a lot of it got vandalized.
So why it wasn't described before? Because the store was closed 8 hours. Right. But when it was closed for that long time, there was people's anxious to get out and do things. But I'm very glad that these young artists.
Do you have advice for these young designers in the room?
Young designer?
Do you have advice for these young students, these designers in the
Oh,
room?
oh, yeah.
Just starting out, what advice do you have for them?
Well, I could say follow your dreams and keep at it, don't you stop. Because if you can see, then it's possible. The opportunity and the possibility is always there. As I mentioned before, I didn't know I was going to go this far with my work. I never thought of it. Matter of fact, 2 times. I get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, and I ask myself, what am I doing? What am I going out there for? I'm not making no money. I'm not doing anything. What am I doing? Am I crazy? But then the 3rd time, I never asked myself. I said to myself, if something should come out of this, because I felt like a magnet following me all the time. So if something happened, good. If something don't happen, it's okay. But I still continue to put on my boots and get over there. And now I look back, I say, I'm glad I did. Follow your dreams.
Yeah.
And when I receive all these awards and recognition, I said, oh my God, if I was thinking negatively, those things would happen. But you just have to think positive, just regardless. Thank you.
All right, thank you.